As a singer-songwriter, I will admit I knew nothing, zero about drums. And this is kind of a funny story, but um, when the person that mentored me, when I was first kind of watching him work on music production, he casually mentioned that he had spent 2 hours looking for the snare drum sound. The snare drum is where I can't see it on this little diagram. It's kind of supposed to be, it's the one with the little X's in the middle. Can you see that? That's the snare drum. But I can't really tell what sound is associated with it. Oh, ka, there it is. That arrow at the bottom. Anyway, the snare drum, he was like, I just spent 2 hours just trying to find the right snare drum for this song. And I literally looked at him and said, why? He kind of laughed. I don't remember how the conversation went after that, but all I know is that I do the same thing. Basically every sound in the drums are so critical, and I'll spend plenty of time, not always 2 hours, but sometimes just getting exactly the right snare drum sound, or even layering several different snares to get the right sound. So in addition to all the different drums, there's textures, sound effects, and ear candy. Oh yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to, I forgot to do this. So break. Okay. So now we're looking at a virtual drum assistant. It's called Addictive Drums 2, and I use this all the time. It's actually sampled drums, which means basically they've recorded real drums and embedded it into this sampler. So I'm going to play. And I like this visual because you can see what drum is hitting. Kind of. Those sounds are these toms being hit. These are the toms. This right here is called a kick drum, sometimes called a bass drum, but in music production, I think it's way too confusing to call it a bass drum when you're also dealing with a bass guitar. So I would just get used to calling that a kick drum. But there are as many options for the sounds. That's an electronic 808 drum machine type of sound. But it's still called a kick drum. And let's get to one here's another acoustic. I can't. There's the snare. There's a snare drum. And if we went to the kit, we would see there's a variety of snare drums just here in this guy that we could flip through and find the best one. And then not only that, but we can go into the snare drum and do all kinds of tweaking to the actual sound, how this is an EQ, which affects all of the frequencies. So I can totally make that sound very, very different by doing some dramatic things to it. You can see obviously really different sounds. Let's go back to our, let's see. So all drum beats are foundational on this, where you have a kick drum driving the pulse and a snare drum also hitting, usually on 2 and 4. So 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and oftentimes a hi-hat. Oh, those are simples. Let's see, where's a hi-hat? That guy in there. Listen to this beat again. Can you hear what that hi-hat is doing? Now, as you start listening to your music, I want you to start listening for those main 3 elements in the drums. The kick drum is the lowest, kind of thumpiest sound that you're going to hear at the bottom. And the snare drum is, like I said, usually on 2 and 4. And the hi-hat is doing something usually a little faster. Sometimes it's quarter notes. Other times it's eighth notes. Sometimes it's even 16th notes. Let's see if I can. It's pitching different drum kits to me that I don't already own. Let me go back. Here's electronic. Okay, even though you're not seeing the kick drum and the snare drum, if you listen carefully, you can hear a boom and k, one, k, one, k, and then also a faster hi-hat. Tick, 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 tick. Listen again. And there's some little syncopated sounds in there too that can be like, sometimes it's like a cowbell, or in that case, it sounded like a reverse cymbal. Was that sound? Right there, you can hear it. It's more of an open hi-hat right there. See if there's that's that 80s snare sound we love. It's kind of showing you what it's playing. Oh, I love this one because on this one, we're hearing a little bit of hi-hat happening, a hi-hat pattern, but we're also hearing a quarter note ride cymbal. This is called a ride cymbal here. And if you listen to it again and look, you can see we've got the 8th note. I think it's 8th. But then quarter note pulse on that ride. That's a real like rock band thing to do. You wouldn't hear that probably in like a hip hop beat or anything like that. Boom, boom, boom. And that, it sounds like a snare drum and a clap layered, which is very, very common in pop and hip hop and all kinds of things. Extra dry, we're going to talk about kind of what that usually is referring to. Okay, I am going to show you the process that I go through in figuring out, first of all, what the drum groove should be of a song, and then how I go about programming those so that they sound real and believable. This is a song written by Suzanne Hodson and Dave Langdon called Found Me in the Storm. And what I have right now is a piano MIDI file that Dave made and Dave's scratch vocal. And he's going to be re-recording the vocals as soon as I get more work done on the production. I'm hearing this song as I've listened to it. It feels like an older Michael W. Smith, like the 90s when contemporary Christian was really crossing over into pop. It feels like a Michael W. Smith song to me, which really feels like a band song. Definitely not a whole lot of synthetic sounds that are going to happen with my drums for sure. So I'm going to approach it that way. Like, this is a situation where what would a real drummer do? Okay, first thing I'm going to do is insert my favorite drum trigger virtual, which like I mentioned before, when you're going for that real drum sound, this is really what you want to do. You want to have a virtual instrument such as this that has a bunch of different drum kits. It has a bunch of different drum grooves that are samples of a real drummer playing the drums. So they're not going to be rigid. They're not going to be exact. There's a real sense of this is a real drummer. That is really crucial. It doesn't mean now if all you have is one that's a little like a lesser than, I guess, because I know there are some virtual instruments much like this, but don't have the real drummer sampled sounds, then you can go in and massage it. And I'm going to show you how to do that because I'm still going to want to massage the drum beat that I come up with. The first thing I do is get the basic settings where I want them. I'm going to tell this Addictive Drums 2. Now there's an Addictive Drums 1, which works much the same way, but this one's just better. It has better drum kits, and I don't even know. I don't think it has the same grooves. It might, but I just like the kits in here. And of course, you can continually buy more and more drum kits, and so I have quite a few of them and use a variety of them all the time. So the first thing I'm going to do is set this time signature. It'll filter out any beat that is not in the same time signature, like a 6/8 or a 3/4. This song is in 4/4, so I'm going to go ahead and select 4/4, and it gives me the options of listening to the beats and the fills. I am not going to worry about unselecting fills, even though really I'm looking for just the main beat. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say sync the beat to the tempo of the project. I just click that button, and sync play stop, which means as soon as I hit play on my DAW, it will go ahead and start the groove, whatever groove I've selected. Then I'm also going to choose a drum kit that is going to be, at least bearable to listen to. Again, we don't really, at this stage, I'm not worried too much about the way the drums sound. More like I just don't want them to sound horrible. And I will worry about the way they sound later after I've established the groove. So I'm going to go to probably my Studio Pop or United Pop kits. These kind of have the best rock kits. I think this Sonar Rock is usually pretty good. And I'll show you how I go in and edit the sounds as well. Now, first thing is I'm just going to jump to the chorus because I already have a sense of where I want the drums to come out or come in. And I don't even think they'll come in the first chorus. They might come in maybe the third verse after the first chorus. So I might jump forward to the second chorus. And that will make more sense to you as you watch me go through this. But I can kind of minimize the main body beat that I want in the second chorus for the verse before. And watch me. I hope that will make more sense. Okay. Now I'm going to select just any beat, American indie beat. Oh, here's one other setting that you can do. I usually don't because I feel like it limits maybe some other possibilities. You can tell Addictive Drums 2 to only show me beats that are within 10 plus or minus BPM of the project tempo, or 20. I'm not going to do that. Like I said, I feel like it cuts out things that maybe I wouldn't stumble upon. You will be amazed at the things that you just accidentally hear and you're like, oh my gosh, I love that. That gives me such a great idea. And it's 163 beats per minute and my song is only 115. If I had had that setting, it never would have even shown me that groove. So I'm going to kind of just click on one that's around the same BPM And then over here in the variant, it has different like sections or different variations of this groove. So let's just go ahead and see what this groove sounds like.
Forever grateful you brought me to this place.
Definitely not, right? Which actually, as I'm thinking about it, this song is 115, which is not very slow, but I want this song to feel like ba ba da 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 da. I want it to feel half as fast, actually, to give it a little bit more of that. It feels like a ballad to me, but 115 beats per minute isn't necessarily fast, but it's not really a slow tempo. So I'm going to do something called transform. Over here, I can say, go ahead and just cut my time, the speed that you're playing the groove, in half. And now when I hit play, it's going to play that same exact beat at half speed.
Forever grateful you brought me to this place.
So that's a lot closer to what I am thinking I want. I'm going to jump over to the chorus because I think that's the end of the verse.
Found me in the storm. When I thought all was lost, you brought me to shore. My life has been transformed. You saved me from the waves, now I'm restored.
What I'm doing is I'm clicking around and I am selecting some beats that are a little bit closer to the 115, just because you can tell when I clicked on, I can't even remember what it was like a 150 or something. It was like so way off, especially at half speed. There's just no way it would work. So I did select a beat that's closer to the actual tempo. I think I already in my mind have an idea of the exact beat that I want. So what I'm going to do is I've got some, what do you call them? Ooh, maybe go to this loud beat. Let's see what we have in here.
Found me in the storm. When I thought
let's see, that is not happening. Let's go to, I've got some pop rock or straight beats, I think. Yeah, straight beat. The beat I have in my head is bum ba ba. And I want to find something that's just kind of close to it, and then I can go in and tweak it, and I'll show you how I do that.
found me in the storm. When I thought all was lost, you brought me to shore. My life has been transformed. You saved me from the waves, now I'm restored.
It's probably still a little busier than I want. I'm going to go up here. And on the variation options, I usually like some ghost notes, because ghost notes are when a drummer is doing something so subtle and so light that you can hardly hear it, but they really add to the character of a groove. And, you know, it depends on the song, it depends on what I'm going for, but if I don't like the ghost notes, then I'll try the clean. Or I might go in to the MIDI after I've selected the beat and take some of them out or change them up a little. But right now I'm starting with the ghost notes because I know I typically like ghost notes.
Found me in the storm.
Okay, that's really close except for the kick drum. So what I'm going to do is I make sure that my snap is on so that when I drag this MIDI over to my drum track, it will lock right into place. So I'm going to select it here, drag it over, And then before I hit play, I'm going to stop. I'm going to unsync play stop, because otherwise I'll be hearing the MIDI from the track along with the Addictive Drums automatic. Anyway, it'll sound weird because I'll just show you. You're hearing two of all the sounds at the same time. Okay, it doesn't sound as weird as I remember. Maybe it has to do with the drum kit, but there have been times I'm like, why does that sound so weird? Oh, the sync play stop is on while I have the MIDI track in here.
You found me in the store when I thought all was lost. You brought me to shore.
I'm going to turn his vocal down just so that we can kind of hear. I want to be able to hear it, but be able to hear the drums a little bit stronger.
You found me in the store.
So what I want my kick drum to do, I double clicked on the MIDI, and I'm going to go in and just start playing around with it. Again, I'm not too worried about what it sounds like because I will worry about that later. I think I want it to go. So just like when I told you that I use humming and sounds a lot, so exactly like when I'm arranging strings where I'm going to hum the melody, I do the same thing when I'm working on the drums. I can kind of hear the rhythm that I want, especially when I'm doing drum fills. I know what I want the drums to do, and if I verbalize it, put it out in the air, then I can hear it in my head, and when I play it back, I can tell what needs to be tweaked.
You found me in the store.
I want that other kick drum right there.
You found me in the store when I thought.
Those are the little ghost notes right here. These guys. Whoops. These guys right here. Those are the ghost notes. And I like them. I think I'm going to just keep them. So for now, I'm going to copy that exact sequence of notes over. And I will kind of beef it out a little with some drum fills and a crash on the downbeat of the chorus. Or some kind of cymbal crash. Again, not too worried about what they sound like at this point.
You found me in the store when I thought all was lost. You brought me to shore.
Now, Suzanne and Dave have gotten some feedback that maybe the song was a little too slow, and I'm already getting the sense that it is. So I'm going to just do that really quick. I'm going to change the tempo. I think the only thing I have to do to get this audio to change the tempo is stretch on off. Now I think it'll change with me. But before recording final vocals, this is something I always want to have definite, and that is the tempo. So right now it's at 115. I'm going to jump to 118 and see if that feels a little better.
You found me in the store when I thought all was lost. You brought me to shore. My life has been transformed.
I want to see what 120 feels like. This is the beauty of MIDI. Don't be afraid to experiment with tempos. It's a great thing.
You found me in the store when I thought all was lost. You brought me to shore.
I actually like that. I think that's the right tempo. Now I want to show you one other thing. I'm kind of second guessing my hi-hats. So right now I have, these are the hi-hats here. And right now they're just happening on the quarter note. Well, it's a half beat, so it feels kind of like an eighth note. 1, 2, and 3, and... I'm wondering about what it might feel like if they were twice as fast. So I'm not speeding up anything else except for the hi-hat. And I think I'm just going to try that on the second half. Not that I would, you know, like a drummer would, well, I don't know. Maybe a drummer would play eighth note hats on the first half of the chorus and then go to 16th notes. It's not super typical, but I'm doing it just so that I can hear the difference between the two options. So let's see. 16th hi-hat closed with ghost notes. So I'm just going to select that and drop it in. And I still need to go in and fix that kick drum. Let's see what that sounds like. I actually don't like it, and I've got another solution, something else that I'm going to try. And that is layering a somewhat busier, faster loop on top of this drum beat. So I'm going to just undo all that I did. Okay. Now let's go back to kind of finessing this drum beat. Right in the middle of the chorus, I don't want those ghost notes, but what I want is a drum fill. Because as you start learning what a real drummer does, there's always some kind of little in between the different sections, and that's just part of this subliminal delivery that musicians learn instinctively to do, to say, hey, we're repeating another pattern, we're repeating a phrase here, this stuff is really important, please pay attention. It's kind of subliminal. But once you pay attention to it and notice it, you'll see it's very intentional. It's, the vocalist might do it, the drummer will do it, the bass player might put in a little riff, the guitar player might put in a little blah, blah, blah. It's constantly happening, these subliminal messages to our brains that say, pay attention to what's happening in the song right now. This is a moment. We're shifting or we're repeating, things like that. So, I'm going to go back to the actual virtual instrument here, the beats, and now I'm going to unselect beats and I'm going to just look at the fills. And again, sync tempo, I don't know if I need to sync play. I want to find a drum fill that's right before the chorus. So something pretty big, because I'm going to have a little bit of some subtle drums, some subtle percussion happening in this third verse. So it won't just be like, oh, the drums just come out of nowhere. There will be a little bit of a build up to it. But I want a pretty big drum moment right before this chorus. Forever grateful you brought me to this place. So probably as something really syncopated. I'm going to go into kind of my pop rock fills, and I'll tell you, at least in Addictive Drums 2, every single virtual instrument that you use is going to have their own way of wording things, their own organization. In Addictive Drums 2, the pop rock fills I have found to be the most useful in all genres. And then they become more and more complex. You start with one and that's like somewhat simple. And as I go down, they become a little busier, a little bit more complex. Actually, that's not true. Look, you can see. over here, you can kind of see what the fill is going to look like. Now again, I have in my head what I want, and so I'm trying to find it something that's as close to possible as close to what I'm hearing in my head as possible. Even though I know what I want, it's still going to sound better if I use one of these automatic, already sampled of a real drummer. And there's going to be nuance to it that I wouldn't be able to recreate. So I'm going to find something really close. And I'm looking at this, it's kind of telling me, oh, see, that one might be it, because I know I want it to come in 2, 3, ba, ba, daka, something like that. That's really close, because actually the snare drum is coming in. I think I have to just switch 2 of them. Let me see if I'm right.
You brought me to this place.
I'm going to take out those little hi-hat lead-ins because I don't need them. Let me go in here. I'm going to kind of use the already created fill, but I'm also going to build it. I think it needs to go
This place.
I want that, but that's the kick drum, and maybe not quite as hard as that. But I really want, I think a really hard, I don't want that hi-hat. I think I need these toms, but over here, and I need this snare there. But I don't want that second snare hit. And these really just have to be monstrous. It's kind of hard to really get it to sound like what I want with this particular drum kit. It's just not meaty enough for what I want. Yeah. I think those toms are still not quite right. And I think it's just about power and sound at this point. I think that's going to be right as soon as I have the right drum sounds. Now in the middle of the chorus, I want another, just kind of a little fill. Let's see. Let me listen here.
My love.
Maybe something like that. Let's just see what that sounds like dropping in. Oops. It's not letting me do it that way. Oh, I actually have to bring it over. It needs to come in here. Now I can go in and kind of edit all that. So I'm taking out those little hi-hat, closed hi-hat hits that all the fills have. And let's see. And I'm going to do another another crash on that downbeat. I want a tom in there. So remember, I want these to be like what a real drummer would do. If I add a tom hit in there and my drummer is hitting the hi-hat and the snare, he does not have 3 arms. So I'm going to remove that hi-hat hit right there, delete it, and then put like a low tom hit right on beat 1, pretty strong one. I want it to be really powerful. There we go. I actually don't like that snare. Yeah. Just want a little bit more of a almost like a pause right before it. Just feels like it makes the beat hit a little better. Okay, now I was talking about wanting something else on top of this, and normally I wouldn't really go through the process of finding other elements to add until I've got the main drum beat fleshed out for the whole song. But I just want to show you what I go through on this process. This can take me a lot of time because it can be, you just really have to experiment with different things. What I'm going to do is first start off with maybe just a shaker. The main thing was I wanted something a little bit faster rhythmically happening. And let's see, because I've got some shakers that are actual samples of shaker sounds that I like to use a lot, but I'm not sure exactly how they're going to fit in with this, the timing. Oh, I think that was the right folder. Let me go back. I need loops. Okay, straight 110, that should be fine. But I might have to do, I'm not sure, 8th notes. I'm just going to see what those sound like. And cakewalk, some loops will automatically adjust to the tempo of the project, and I happen to know that these loops that I am using right now don't. So I just right click, groove clip looping, and it automatically will adjust that loop to the tempo. That's exactly what I want. And I started with the shaker because I want this song to feel organic. I want it to feel like a band could, a band's playing it. I don't want it to sound programmed because there's a lot of options that I could have gone for that are, ticking sounds that are all, or drum machine sounds, things that sound synthetic that could be really cool. They could possibly work in this song, but I really want it to feel organic. And I know my client does too. They both want it to feel, like something that is representative of who they are as writers and artists. Okay, so just kind of listening back. See, I just kind of played around with, okay, I want the shaker to be noticeable but barely heard. And the mixing process is usually something I do at the end. But while I'm producing, while I'm arranging, I'm still thinking about mix, because it just will make everything easier if you're kind of mixing as you go. So I did turn them quite a bit down, even though we don't even have the real drum sounds yet, so, which means I'm sure I'll be adjusting that. Now, let's see if we can just go into our drum kit, perhaps look at the drums that we have going on, the kit that we're using. I definitely don't like that snare drum sound. Ooh, I have real particular taste when it comes to the snare drum sounds, and I think it has to do with the era that I grew up in. In the 70s, there were a lot of these really dry, snappy snares, and I love that sound. But then in the 80s, when I was in high school, the big, fat, gated reverb, Phil Collins kind of snare drums were everywhere. I love those too. So I really have to find what fits the song that I'm working on. And I feel like the really tight, crisp, smack 70s snare is not going to work. But I don't know if the big, fat snare from the 80s is going to work either. So I have to kind of find something that makes sense for this song that may not be my absolute favorite kind of snare sound. But I'll just show you the difference it can make when you start flipping through the different snare drums. They all sound, remarkably different. That one doesn't have a snare on it. I'm going to go to a different kit completely, and sometimes I like that kick. It's horrible. That's closer to what I like. It's got a little bit of fatness to it. Now this is where I'm not a drummer. A real drummer might look at me tweaking this stuff and go, oh my gosh, face palm, what are you doing? I have a general understanding of what all this stuff means, and that's only because I've been playing with it. But I've never been to like a drum clinic where someone taught me specifically, what does this response knob do? Or my husband's a drummer, so I've learned actually a lot from him about tuning the drums and how important that is. But everything else has been something that I've figured out just by working with knobs and moving things around and being like, ooh, I like the way that sounds. Ooh, I like the way that sounds. So again, this is a tutorial for people who do not play the drums. Just get in and play around with stuff until you like what it sounds like. Now, what a snare drum, a preferred sound is going to be very, very subjective. There really isn't a right or a wrong, but if you are playing it for people and they say, ooh, what is that? Clangy, ugly, blah. If you keep getting a response about your snare drum sound being bad, then pay attention to that and see if you can take a drum workshop and learn more about how to get the drums to sound exactly like what you want them to sound. But I love the drums so much that, and I've learned how to tweak enough that when I listen back to songs, I feel like, oh, I love the way those drums turned out. I keep working with them until I get that in every scenario that I possibly can. Sometimes I don't have the time to just tweak, but I really am passionate about getting the drums to sound right. They're just such an important part of the production. If the drums aren't right, either the groove or the sounds, it's really hard to get anything else to make sense. That's how I feel about it. So anyway, I am just kind of listening through this. I really hate that sound. Crunchier, which actually always really twist the knob to see like, what is this even doing? If you're only doing it a little and you don't hear much of a change, then you might be like, I don't even know what that does. Well, do it more. Now you can really hear what that pitch envelope setting does. Now volume envelope. Same thing.
When I thought all was lost, you brought me to shore. My life has been transformed. You saved me from the waves, now I'm restored.
I don't know who did this EQ, but that's kind of wow. That one snare hit is just so horrible, and I think it has to do more with the hit. I think I might want a flam, which let me tell you what a flam is. If I was a real drummer, I could explain to you what I'm really doing with the drumsticks, but I'm just going to tell you really quick. It's the art of hitting ba-ba so fast. You're hitting both sticks so fast at the same time that it's almost microscopically a double hit. You can't really tell that it's in there twice, but it's such a cool sound and I love it. And so it might be that I need a little flam here. So 2 hits, not maybe the second one's going to be right on the beat. I'm not sure. Maybe a little more ahead on that one. And maybe more powerful. Still not in love with that hit, but I will figure it out. It might take me going back to it kind of towards the later through the process, but for now we're going to go with that. Okay, now I mentioned that maybe in the earlier chorus I'm going to have some percussive elements, and this is where I'm going to start using some samples to get, just like I did with the shaker, to get some kind of cool stuff happening. I'm going to do a low kick drum, and I'm going to use a kick sample for this. I even have a favorite one that I like to use. And I'm just going to plop it right here on the downbeat of the first chorus. It's a real dark, not that one, this one, kick drum. And it's going to be pretty soft. I might even cut out some high frequencies so that it's really muffled. Almost sounds more like a distant boom. I'm going to put some reverb on it as well. You hear that? That's so cool. You found me in the storm. And I think I'm going to just put it on that strung beat.
Thought all was lost, you brought me to shore.
And then another strung beat.
Life has been transformed.
I feel like it needs a little more activity right here.
My life has been transformed.
So what I'm doing might not make sense right now because I don't have the other element of this beat, but I'm going to add that so you can see what I'm doing. Oops, that's not what I meant to write. Percussion. And you can see I'm routing all of these drum elements to my drum bus. And we're not going to get into that in this, but that's basically so that I can control the overall volume of all drums and all percussion at one time if they're all routing to the same bus. Okay, so I'm going to add some kind of a little percussion sound.
You found me in a storm.
Not yet. I don't know. I might. Let's see. Oh gosh, I have so many different percussion sounds in my sample library. I also have virtual synths that would probably have something really cool. But maybe let's just, for simplicity, for now. There's a lot of fun stuff, right? I think I want something kind of not jingly like a tambourine hit, like the one I just hit. I'm going to just search perk, and we're going to see what comes up with lots of reverb, maybe even muffled a little bit. I think I'll just put it on that beat 3. So right now that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I'm going to put a little bit of reverb on there, which is a reverb that comes with Cakewalk that actually I use all the time. It's got a lot of great settings. I think I don't want it to be so bright, so I'm going to just do a filter with EQ called a a low pass filter, which is cutting out some of these high frequencies here. Let's just see what that sounds like. Yeah.
When I thought all was lost, you brought me to shore.
It's exactly what I wanted. Okay, now I've got the kick drum that's this low boomy sound is a little busier. Let's see if I can just keep that percussion hit on.
My life has been transformed.
The same pattern. I think I will. I actually don't think I like the kick drum doing the busy thing. I'm just going to keep the kick drum on the downbeat of every 4 bars.
Life has been transformed. You saved me from the waves, now I'm restored. Consequences so painful, soothed by your healing grace, I am.
For the verse, I'm going to kind of have that low kick drum and that percussion remain, but I'm going to add some other things and something a little busier.
Consequences so painful, soothed by your healing grace, I am forever grateful. You brought me to this place. In the storm.
Still not in love with those drum sounds. It's almost torturous, right? When you like know in your mind what you want these drums to eventually sound like and they're just not there yet. So you just have to like, ooh, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just shaping, kind of getting an idea of the shape of the song. Like I said, I would typically finish the main drums. I'd go into the bridge and get those drums figured out, and then the last chorus, and kind of work on all the fills. And then I might jump into doing all the sample stuff beforehand. Kind of doing that just so I can show you a little bit more. So in this verse, I want to add something rhythmic, and I'm gonna go to where is it? Arcade, which is kind of a fun synthesizer that, well, it's a sampler. It's kind of fun. It's like, if you've heard of Splice, that's another one, but this is more like it feels like a synthesizer to me. You can actually go in. Some of the kits have actual sounds that are already created. It'll make more sense if I can just show you. And then other lines or kits can you can actually play an exact note. So if you say I want that sound, but I want it to be an A, you can hit an A. But not all of them work that way. I'll show you, for example. This is just one I use pretty regularly if I'm doing like a pop, anything kind of modern day pop, because altered vocal sounds are very, very, very common, very popular. And so if I hit on my keyboard,
always wanted something like this.
That's a C. Obviously, it doesn't sound like a C.
Can't seem to find you.
That's the D.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
And the black keys of my keyboard actually alter the note that I'm hitting. So if I'm hitting this low E, and then I hit this F sharp with it, it alters it. So it's a different way of creating, but it can be really, 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 really fun. So anyway, I'm not going to add an altered vocal in this song, I don't think. I just don't think it calls for it. But I am going to go to, there's this one line that is all about, it says instead of hi-hats is what it's called, because instead of like a typical hi-hat doing a they've got just a ton of different types of sounds, like conveyor belt. I mean, what? The thing is I feel like a lot of those are really for the kind of song that needs to feel more modern. And it's not that I don't want this song to feel modern, but I really feel like it needs to feel organic. And I just think it's not a place for it. As fun as arcade is, I think this is what I want to do. I think I want to create a filtered drum loop of what's happening in the chorus, just the main drum beat. I don't have the drum sounds worked out yet, so I might have to redo that later. But just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, I just bounced down that Addictive Drums synthesizer track. It's called freezing it or bouncing down. You convert the MIDI to an audio. And so now you can see it doesn't look like MIDI anymore. It looks like an audio file. And I did that so that I can copy the audio. And I'm going to bring it down here, create a new audio track. And I'm just going to copy that much of it. Turn it way down, filtered. And I'm going to play around with just adjusting the sound on it. I might do it with this Moog filter because it'll allow me to do a sweep on it. So see what this sounds like. Whoa.
Consequences are painful, soothed by your healing grace. I am forever grateful you brought me to this place. You found me in the
So something, I think maybe that Moog plugin being on my DAW just made everything slow down because of the screen capture that I'm doing. So sorry about that, but hopefully I can get this to work. And I'm going to show you when I said I want to do a sweep with this filter, this is what I'm talking about. I'm going to turn it up just so you can hear it really well. So I've got a cutoff happening, and then I'm going to automate the change of that cutoff. So this will make more sense. Here we go.
consequences are painful, soothed by your healing grace. I am forever grateful you brought me to this place. You found me in the storm.
I might have to do it differently just because there's this huge delay happening. But I actually think that's going to be great. I think it's going to help us lead into that drum fill just perfectly. So when you hear the final song, you'll be able to see if that worked out. But that's, I think, what I want. It's a modern technique without getting too synthetic sounding. For like this filtered drum sound is everywhere. Once you know what it is, you'll notice it's everywhere. And as a matter of fact, Adele's song Hello, the entire song is filtered drums. It sounds like a real drummer playing real drums, but they completely cut off all of the high frequencies. It sounds like it's underwater. There's tons of reverb in it, and the whole song is that way. And it makes a song feel like it's got something powerful, something behind it, like a beat behind it, without an obvious drum beat going on. So it's kind of a modern trick that you'll notice everywhere. But I'm thinking that's going to work for this song. Okay, I think maybe that's as far as I'm going to go. I will link to the release when it's out in the description below, but also make sure you grab your freebie from the description below as well. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you being here. I hope you learned something. Please tell me in the comments what you learned, what you enjoyed, what you hated. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Talk to you later.